Hello darlings and welcome back to my channel. I am now a fully vaccinated human being. I just got my second shot of the AstraZeneca vaccine for COVID-19 and I'm so happy. So with all of the, obviously the COVID-19 vaccine making its way through more and more people, I thought that I would make a little video on just what it's like getting vaccinated in general when you have a really bad phobia of needles. This is something I've talked about a little bit in various videos on my channel, but I do have quite a severe needle phobia. It stems from just a memory that I have when I was a child that's probably slightly altered because of the fear reaction in my brain. But unfortunately, there is not really much I can do about it now. It is just a phobia that I have and that I've dealt with since I was about 5 years old. And obviously, this makes getting vaccinations very difficult for me. Now, blood tests are a whole other thing. I have never had a blood test, thank God. Touch all of the wood. And I hope to God I never have to have one because that would be a whole other thing. But I have had several vaccinations and the process is quite difficult, so I thought if you are someone who also suffers from a needle phobia, I would just explain what the process was like getting my 2 COVID vaccinations, kind of how I dealt with it, and my experiences with that. So hopefully if you are someone who also shares this problem, then it will make you feel a little bit calmer and hopefully can give you some tips. So obviously the way that everyone reacts to phobias will be a little bit different. For me, I tend to hyperventilate, I get very dizzy, I feel incredibly nauseous, I have a lot of adrenaline moving through my body all at the same time, so I go into sort of fight or flight mode, and I want to flee. That is my impulse, and this makes it very stressful. So the first thing that I tend to do is try as hard as I can not to think about the fact that I'm getting a vaccination, basically up until I reach the doctor's surgery or the vaccination centre or wherever you're getting it done. So I don't think about it. I just empty, no thoughts, head empty, go completely lack of brain cell, and I don't let it enter my head because the more I overthink it, the more I'm going to work myself up. I generally try and get driven to the vaccination centre, so I can drive, but I tend to ask someone else if they will take me because I also have to employ the buddy system. So for the COVID jabs, I was really lucky in that they let me take my dad in with me as kind of emotional support. Because I am so nervous. I think they kind of saw me, you know, all of the blood kind of drains from my face, I'm very pale, I'm breathing obviously quite ragged, and my dad was like, is it okay if I come in with her? And they were like, yep, that's fine. So they do usually they will let people come in with you if you have quite a severe phobia, because that's more helpful. If they won't let someone come in with you, then ask for a specific nurse to sit with you that isn't the person that's going to be vaccinating you, because I find having that different point of focus is something that I really need, and I also need someone to hold my hand and to keep me upright. One of the ways that my phobia presents itself is that I find it impossible to be lying down. So all of the COVID vaccination centres that I have seen and that I have talked about with my friends, they always have you sitting down in a chair. Sometimes if they see that you're incredibly nervous, they will ask if you would prefer to lie down. I personally find that less than helpful. I would honestly rather get it standing up than I would lying down, because I feel way too vulnerable, and it kind of triggers just something in my brain wherein I'm like, I kind of see it as a threat, as a weapon. So sitting up is always the best way for me. Don't look at the syringe, don't do it. The nurses, the second I went in, this is another point I have to make the nurses aware that you are incredibly nervous, that you have a phobia, and they will be really kind to you. The 4 nurses that I have had throughout getting my 2 vaccinations have been so kind, empathetic, really, really, really sweet, kept me distracted, been really lovely about the whole thing, and about the fact that I'm trying not to cry on them, and they've just been really, really kind to me. So the nurse, the healthcare staff that you are dealing with will hopefully be very, very sweet once you make them aware that you have an issue. The nurses hid the syringes from me, and also just don't look. If you see that they're, you know, that they have to collect it from somewhere, just basically sort of play a little Looney Tunes game of making sure that you don't see them. Some people prefer to have a countdown. I don't. I do generally prefer to have slightly more warning. Like today the nurse just snuck up and like did it because I can feel it. That is another thing. They do sting. I wouldn't say they hurt. This is partly an association that I have because of the root incident of my phobia. I'm always afraid of pain. But the jabs that I had, they don't hurt, they sting, you can feel them. I can't talk about this too much because I do get quite tight-chested trying to think about it. But you do feel it, it will sting a bit. So just be aware of that. I would rather someone told me rather than obviously being told that something isn't going to hurt and then finding that it does. It will sting, you will be able to feel it. That feeling is part of the thing that makes me feel very dizzy and nauseous. So once it's done, they take it out, they'll put the little cotton pad on you, and usually at that point I start hyperventilating. So immediately before, immediately during, I try and take one really big slow deep breath in and one really big slow deep breath out, and by the time you've done that, the whole thing will be over. I find that it's directly before and directly afterwards that I tend to have my major issues. So this is why it's really good if they kind of sneak attack you. And for me, if they're just like, okay, and then it happens, because it doesn't give me time to sort of psych myself out. My dad is already making sure that I'm doing deep breathing beforehand. Afterwards, I do tend to hyperventilate because of all the adrenaline and the nausea. So really focusing on just trying to take really deep, slow breaths, as slow as you can manage. Your version of a slow breath might not be everyone else's version of a slow breath, but just start as slow as you can get and then work on from there. I have really pretty nails, so I was looking at my nails, look at the pattern on my dress. That's another thing, wear something that I can kind of look at and look at the pattern and think about the colours, all that kind of thing I find really helpful. And then we come to the afterwards part, which is quite difficult. If you have a phobia, you will generally take a little bit longer to recover from having a vaccination than a normal person. So a normal person can just take a couple of minutes and then stand up and walk out. I take about 5 to 10 minutes to be able to be well enough to actually walk out of the vaccination centre. Ask if you can just sit in a side room for a minute while you recover yourself. I find the actual standing up bit to be very hard. I get very, I tend to get very woozy and pass out. And that is partially because of another different medical thing that I have going on. But like today, for example, I tried to stand up and I immediately just buckled. So it's good to have the nurses be aware of that if that is something that you tend to do. Just let them know, I'm going to try and stand up, I might faint a little bit. The thing that a therapist recommended to me was to gather a list of really, really calming things. So what your favourite calming scent is, what a calm feeling would be for you, what it would look like visually, how it would sound. Just create this little oasis in your head, and you want to then tap a really slow, regular heartbeat. You can start doing this in the waiting room. You can just sort of tap on your arm or tap on your foot and just talk yourself through what your calm, happy place would be. This is something that they tend to use for people who have severe phobias, so it's really helpful for a lot of people, just talking yourself through that little story, so that you're nice and relaxed and you're keeping your heart rate low, you're keeping your blood pressure low, you're just letting yourself be a gentle sort of cloud-like force. Generally, after you've had the vaccination, they advise that you don't drive for at least 15 minutes. As I said, I always get driven to and from this sort of thing because I am not well enough to drive myself afterwards. And after, I really recommend having something to do that's really nice. So going to get McDonald's, having a sugary drink in the car to give you a little pep, going and meeting with a friend or a family member, going and sitting on the beach, going for a walk, anything that's nice that you know that you can look forward to after you've had the kind of big scary thing. That is my experience of being vaccinated when you have a severe needle phobia. I hope this video was helpful, and I just wanted to say that needle phobias are often really overlooked. No one likes getting blood tests or vaccinations or anything like that, so I think there can be a misconception that if you say I have a phobia, you just mean, oh, I get a little bit nervy. I see you, I know that it's really frustrating when people are like, no one likes having this done. I'm like, no, I will literally faint. Like, genuinely hyperventilate, cry, the whole thing. So you are really impressive and brave and strong for going to get this medical procedure done, even though it makes you really frightened. And it is so important to get vaccinated, and I will leave a link to a video by Jessica Kelgren-Fozard, who just had her first baby, congratulations, about the importance of vaccinations, especially when it comes to people who are immunocompromised and rely on sort of herd vaccination to make sure that they don't get sick. You are really brave, you can do this, I promise. Focus on your deep breathing, use the buddy system, talk to the nurses, who are wonderful people, and you are going to be okay, I promise. It might not be easy, but you are going to get through it. I love you all so very much. Remember to have courage and be kind, and may all of your dreams come true, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Important note, my arm was super sore after my first vaccination, and after the second one it is not that bad, so that's always a plus.